Tiger fans, you're now tuned in to Tiger Rag Television, your source for the latest in LSU sports, in-depth game analysis, engaging interviews, and all things Tiger Nation. It's time to talk some LSU sports. Let's get ready for your Tiger Rag hosts, Jim Inkster, Chelsea Brumfield, Jeff Palermo, Ron Higgins, and Tyler Nunez.
Welcome to Tiger Rag Television. I'm Chelsea Brumfield, and don't worry, Tiger fans. We are back with football this Saturday, and it's a big one. Number 1, LSU going head-to-head with number 2, Alabama, in Tuscaloosa this Saturday. And it's going to be a big one, and of course we're going to talk all about it. Key predictions. What is Joe Burrow going to do? We're all going to break it down here because, of course, we are the Bible of LSU sports. But first, Jim, who do we have in studio for our interview today?
You mentioned Joe Burrow, Chelsea, and he may win the Heisman Trophy. Probably will if LSU wins this Saturday. But we have an LSU quarterback who once went to Tuscaloosa and led a team to a 27-0 victory over the Crimson Tide. That was 22 years ago. The quarterback was Herb Tyler. He looks like he could still play, and we'll be with him in short order.
And, of course, the big topic, LSU versus Alabama. Glenn Guilbeau is joining us in studio, feature columnist for Tiger Rag, to talk about Coach O. Is he ready to clinch the win against Saban? We're going to talk all about it right after this break. And this week's Crossfire debate, Glenn Guilbeau joins us back in studio to talk with Jim Inkster. Coach O is going up against Coach Saban in this weekend's big game. And will Coach O secure the extreme spotlight and highlights of clinching the win against Alabama?
This is Jim Inkster, president of Tiger Rag, and our guest is Glenn Guilbeau in the Crossfire, featured columnist for Tiger Rag magazine, and his big gig is with USA Network. And he is a fellow who's followed LSU and Alabama for many, many years. Going back to the year of 2000, this is the week, the game of the century for the second time in 8 years. But let's go back a bit to 2000 and a guy named Nick Saban, 49 years old, a journeyman coach is hired. Some people thought he was highly overpaid at $6 million for 5 years. Turned out to be a pretty good bargain for LSU.
Yeah, he started at $1.2 million, which is what assistant coaches make commonly. Dave Aranda makes $2.5 million. But yeah, I would say it was a heck of an investment. The team was really bad in 1998 and 99, and had lost 8 of 11 of the previous seasons, losing seasons, and he turned it around pretty quick. Then won the national championship in 2003, and then he left, and now he's back coaching against LSU.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's done rather well at Alabama. He did well at LSU. He won a national title. But at Alabama, it's like off-the-chart stuff. In the last 11 years, 84-9 in the Southeastern Conference. 5 national championships. Coach O is 0-3 against Saban, and those games have not been close. LSU scored 10 points in 3 games. They might score more than 10, but you believe that LSU, like a lot of people, including many of our staffers, believe this is the year. How can Coach O beat the great Saban?
Well, I think Coach O has an offense because of Joe Brady, the new pass game coordinator, and Steve Ensminger, too, who doesn't get enough credit, I believe. But, I mean, it's an offense that nobody is used to seeing LSU having, including Nick Saban. He spoke about that on the SEC teleconference last week, and he brought up the fact that they're similar to the Saints without being asked, because Joe Brady worked for the Saints. And I just think Alabama's defense is pretty good. You don't really know how good they are because they've played no one. But they still have a lot of talent over there. But it's not the same defense as LSU played just a few years ago. Very dominant on the defensive line and linebacker. They don't have that this year. They're great in the secondary. I think LSU is going to win this game because they're going to be able to run the ball against Alabama and pass at times, which is how they beat Auburn. And I just think LSU has as much or more talent than Alabama this year, particularly on offense, and that hasn't been the case in years. And their offensive line matches up with Alabama's defensive line. That's going to help them.
The last time LSU had an 8-game losing streak against Alabama was entering the 1979 game, and Alabama won a 3-0 slugfest in the mud of Tiger Stadium.
Yes.
And Alabama went on to win its last national championship under Bear Bryant. My belief is that Alabama will probably prevail Saturday.
Wow.
And that this may be the last championship under Nick Lou Saban. So does that mean somebody else comes along and usurps him as the greatest coach in the league? Does Coach O have hope that at age 58, as he enters his 7th decade on the planet, when he turns 60, that he'll be the guy, that he's on his way to the same kind of dominance that Alabama has right now?
Well, he'll have a chance in the conference. I mean, Dabo Swinney at Clemson has already kind of passed up Saban in a way, winning the national championship this past year and a previous one. Right. Kirby Smart is doing very well at Georgia. I really like Dan Mullen at Florida, too. But Coach O, last year, this past February, number 3 recruiting class in the country. Right now, he's got number 1. Uh-huh. If he finishes 3-1 or even 3-2 or 3-3, that's the best 2 back-to-back classes LSU will have had since Saban had number 1 in 03 and number 2 in 04. And those 2 signing classes made up 30 players on the depth chart, 2-deep depth chart, in 2007 when Les Miles won the championship 3 years later. So he really set the program up for the future, Saban did. And with these 2 classes, Ed could be really good for quite a few years after this season. You know, so if he wins it this season, he's going to have a chance to win a second one within a couple of years. So he could be on his way.
And people said the same about Les Miles in 2007. He had some great teams, but he never won another national title.
Well, he got to the game, and he got to the championship game twice in 4 seasons, so that was pretty good. But yeah, he never got the offense going like Coach O has.
Well, when Saban came here from Michigan State, he came sight unseen. His wife kind of looked over Baton Rouge, says it's okay. But he came because he knew that there was great talent in the state of Louisiana, yes, and that he would have the corner on that talent.
Right.
Coach O is doing the damnedest thing. He's recruiting nationally, and now 15 of the guys he's bringing in aren't even from Louisiana. What in the world is going on?
Well, you know, that's the way to do it, because really Coach Miles's best classes, he was kind of dependent on the state being good. You know, so when the state was good, he was good, and when it wasn't, he kind of slipped. The state is not great this class, and Ed is at number 1 because he's got 5 guys from the D.C. area. He's got 2 from California. He's got 1 from Colorado. He's got several from Texas, and I think there's some from Florida too. But, you know, he has really hit some areas that LSU historically has never hit, the D.C. area, the Beltway, and California. You know, so that's and that's a great strategy, because the more times you don't have to go head-to-head against Saban, the better.
Now, Glenn has been writing for Tiger Rag off and on since 1983. But when Saban arrived in 2000, you were the beat writer for The Advocate.
Right.
And you and Saban hit it off. He didn't like a lot of sports writers, but for whatever reason, he tolerated Glenn Guilbeau. What was the secret to your relationship with Nick Saban?
I don't know. I mean, he got along well with Carl Dubois and Scooter Hobbs as well, and some other writers. But I just always liked Nick because he was like a teacher, and you learned something when you spoke to him, and he knows how to answer questions. And really, most of the time he tells the truth. And when he doesn't tell the truth, he at least sells the lie, and it's plausible. Whereas most people, you know, I mean, Coach Miles, my God, you know, you just never could believe what he had to say most of the time. Now, Coach O is good too. He's very candid and honest, I find. But I always just found Nick very interesting. He reminded me of Clint Eastwood. You know, he seemed to always have an edge and be angry. And he was kind of funny sometimes without even knowing it. And I just thought you really learned about the team when you spoke to him.
Well, you mentioned that when he arrived, LSU had 8 losing seasons in 11 years.
Right.
Now LSU's had 20 consecutive 8-win seasons or more. How much of that is attributable to Nick Saban?
Oh, I think a lot of it is. I mean, he did what should have been being done for years. I mean, LSU made bad hires over the years. They hired coaches who should never been head coaches. And he just showed how well a coach should recruit at LSU with the talent around. I mean, Coach Saban will tell you off the record that the LSU job is better than the Alabama job as far as recruits close to the campus. Okay, Alabama's obviously got some other things going like history and tradition and the SEC. No, I'm just kidding. But Coach Miles was a great recruiter too, and really followed up well with Coach Saban and recruited very well, much better than the coaches before Saban. And Coach Orgeron has also been a very good recruiter. So that's what has kept the winning seasons going year after year here at LSU.
Well, Glenn Gilbo, thank you. Is this the year LSU wins?
I do think LSU will win. Michael Divinity is a key loss, but I still think LSU wins a close game in the 30s.
And we'll be back next week with more pearls of wisdom from Glenn Gilbo, and we'll know a lot more next week about the game of the century. We're back with more Tiger Rag Television after this brief pause.
Welcome back to Tiger Rag Television. It's time for our Tiger Rag six-pack, 6 questions that we present to the Tiger Rag editor and assistant editor. But before we give you question number 1, let's introduce you to the new editor for Tiger Rag Magazine and TigerRag.com. It's veteran journalist Ron Higgins, who's been around the beat for a long time. In fact, worked at Tiger Rag some 40 years ago, Ron, and it's great to have you back.
Well, it's great to be back. It just took me 41 years and 8 jobs to get a promotion. So it's good to be back with the Tiger Rag. Back in 79, 80, we delivered the paper by horse and carriage. So that's how long I've been gone. So it's great to be back. Great working with Tyler. I'm really excited. I'm excited Jim Inkster gave me this chance. Great time for LSU athletics. Perfect timing. Everything's going great.
Yep, big game this Saturday, so let's start talking about it. Question number 1 for the Tiger Rag 6-pack. Tua Tagovailoa had the minor ankle surgery right after the game, a couple weeks ago, in fact. How effective will he be against the Fighting Tigers on Saturday?
Well, Nick Saban would probably say it is what it is. But I think he'll be effective enough. Now, you got to make him move. Even when he's healthy and he throws on the run, he's very inaccurate, not as accurate as he is when he's standing back there. You got to make him move. He'll play. I know he had surgery. Nick may have brought in a faith healer for all we know, just to get him up and running. But you have to remember, with him or without him, they got a bunch of 5-star recruits all over that team. They may not be as good, but they're going to be pretty good. So LSU should just go worry about beating Alabama, not so much Tua.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's going to play in this game. He's a warrior. He's a great quarterback. It's just a matter of how mobile he'll be. And he showed weakness last year in the same area. He had an ankle injury. Teams were able to kind of attack that and give him some pressure. Georgia gave him some trouble with that last year. They cruised through Oklahoma, and then Clemson, he really just didn't look like himself. So I think if LSU can force him out of the pocket, make him a little bit uncomfortable, he might be a little bit vulnerable.
All right, question number 2 for the Tiger Rag six-pack. Michael Divinity, LSU's linebacker, a senior from John Ehret, is no longer part of the football team. What kind of impact will this have on Saturday's game, Tyler?
If you're LSU, you'd like to say minimal, but it's a big loss. He's had a huge season this year. 5 sacks in 5 games. Really good at getting to the quarterback. It's going to be really hard for him for LSU to replace him. I think we're going to see Andre Anthony play a little bit more. We're going to see Ray Thornton a little bit more, and a bit of a wild card. Look for Damone Clark to get more playing time, whether that be at inside linebacker or outside linebacker. But I expect him to see more of the field as a result of this.
I think LSU can replace him. I think he's missed so much time this year with suspensions and injury that LSU has played guys in his place. Maybe not as effective, but they got the experience to do it. And this is where, Ed Orgeron mentioned several people who could step up, one being Caleb Chason, who really needs to step up his game to play to the level of the hype he got when he came here. And he hasn't reached that level yet. If he wants to break out to the nation, this is a good time to do it.
All right, question number 3 for the Tiger Rag 6-pack. LSU's offensive line has not had good games against Alabama in the past. How will they perform this Saturday in Tuscaloosa, Ron?
Well, I think they'll perform well. For one reason, it's just LSU's offensive scheme. One, they get the ball out of Burrow's hands. Joe Burrow's hands really quick on a lot of passes. And 2, just the fact that they have a diverse offense. Listen, for the past, decade, Alabama's defensive line could sit in Chase lounge chairs and plays LSU's offense. So predictable. Leonard Fournette got tired of running the 8-9-man fronts. The way LSU does it this year, the play calling, it's very predictable. It'll help the offensive line because the play calling is simply better. And this offensive line has gotten better every game this year. And Alabama's defensive line doesn't have that big dominant name it's had in the past.
That's exactly right, Ron. This is why they brought in Joe Brady, to run this offense for this game. The offensive line got whooped last year, especially up the middle with Quinnen Williams just dominating LSU's interior offensive line. They brought in this coordinator so that they could run an offense in a way that could eliminate that threat. Joe Burrow is getting the ball out of his hands much quicker. They don't rely on their run game. They use their running game to expand on its passing game, and that's going to be a key to victory for LSU this weekend and a key to getting in the end zone for the first time against Alabama in 2 years.
All right, I'm glad you brought up Joe Brady because that is my subject for question number 4 for the Tiger Rag 6-pack. Tyler, how difficult will it be to retain Joe Brady, who has helped the Tigers become the 4th highest scoring team in the country this season?
I think a promotion's in order, honestly. I think that he's going to have people from all over the country who want him as a part of their program, especially after the year that LSU's had this explosion on offense. I think they're probably going to have to promote him to a co-offensive coordinator position. They still have to hold on to Steve Ensminger. He's signed through another year, so I expect them to work together. They've done a good job working together this year. I don't see that being an issue, but if they want to hold on to him, I think that's going to be the price they have to pay.
I think they give him a hefty raise and a new title and promise him a statue within 10 years. That ought to cover it at LSU. Might do the trick because he's going to be a hot commodity. I mean, his name has already been mentioned with Florida State, along with James Franklin from Penn State. He's going to be a hot commodity. But there's one thing, even though you're hot, and even at his age, a lot of coaches know internally they may not be ready for the enormity of how to run a football program as a CEO. Ed Orgeron found that out at Ole Miss, and he'll tell you he wasn't ready for that job. Gave a great interview, got the job, but didn't know what to do. And you have to learn how to be a CEO and run a program before you do it. And even though you're a whiz kid on the board and has all this great offensive ideas, the idea of running an entire football program is daunting, and it's something that Joe Brady probably may not be ready for until like 3 or 4 years down the line, like 35 or 36.
All right, question number 5 for the Tiger Rag 6-pack. You mentioned Florida State. Willie Taggart is out as the head coach of the Seminoles. Is Florida State still a good job? Tyler?
I think it is. I mean, there's so much history there. What Bobby Bowden did at that program for decades, it can't be ignored. Obviously, they're kind of struggling right now, and the legendary status of that program is kind of at risk right now. But I think there's enough history there that it can carry them to finding another great coach from anywhere across the country.
It's in the state of Florida. It's the greatest recruiting ground in America. All you got to do is hop in an Uber and drive around and recruit. And if you're pretty smart at it, you'll get the guys that you need that fit your program. Willie Taggart apparently wasn't smart at it, and it just didn't work for him. And he's getting paid $17 million to leave. I know that my buyout is not that high in my contract with Tiger Rag, but if Jim wanted me to leave, I'll be walking out the door right now. But I'm just happy to be here what I have. But yeah, Florida State still is a good job because of the recruiting area, absolutely.
All right, we got one more question for the Tiger Rag 6-pack, so we're going to make it a quick one. Biggest key in this game for LSU to get a win, Ron?
Make Tua move. Don't let him sit back there and just throw laser beams at you all day. Make him move.
Tyler?
For me, it's going to be limit turnovers. Let Joe Burrow sling it, but he needs to be careful with the ball, and you also can't put the ball on the ground. So if you can limit turnovers, you got a chance.
All right, that's our Tiger Rag 6-pack. We'll take a break. More of Tiger Rag Television when we come back.
I'm Jim Inkster, and this week our interview segment includes the incomparable Herb Tyler, the pride of New Orleans, a great quarterback at LSU. In his career, he had a great first 3 years and then not a bad fourth year, but LSU lost a lot of close games his senior year, and he came in with Jerry DiNardo, and Herb Tyler was really the guy who brought LSU back. LSU had 6 losing seasons when he arrived as a freshman in 1995. That's hard to understand in today's environment, but we're going to talk about Joe Burrow. But before we get there, Herb Tyler, how did you end up at LSU?
Oh man, pleasure. Thank you for having me here. I really wanted to go to Tulane. I was on the green wave, if you will, right? Wanted to stay at home. My daughter was just born, but my dad said, "Son, you're getting out of New Orleans. You're going to go somewhere, anywhere." And I said, "Well, how about LSU?" And he said, "Sure." So my dad was really good friends with an LSU alumni who was a great man to this day. I still talk to him, and he was instrumental in just telling my dad how great of a school LSU was, and how great of a school it could be for myself. And then when we made the decision for me to go there, it was just hands down the best decision ever.
And of course, the coach was Jerry DiNardo. He had just succeeded Curly Hallman. And hard to believe he lost 28 games and 44 starts in 4 years.
Yep.
But DiNardo came in and immediately had a winning season. And on the recruiting trail, he was a dynamic guy, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, the number one recruit that we had was Kevin Falk. I mean, everyone knows who Kevin is, right? Yeah. And then not only him, Boogie McFarland, Todd McClure, Alan Faneca. I mean, I can continue to go down the line.
They all came in.
All those guys came in with me in 1995. And then after that, you had your Cecil Collins, you had your Mark Romans, you had your Robert Rawls, all of these guys. I mean, just a ton of guys that came in during the DiNardo era who eventually, went on to play NFL football. And the one thing I think that stood out for us is that we really wanted to bring LSU back to its glory days, if you will. We saw 6 losing seasons with Curly Holman. Not that Curly was a bad guy or that he didn't know how to coach, but you just run into some ruts at some point in time, right? So we wanted to, if you will, bring the magic back, which was Coach DiNardo's signature line, and we took pride in that, being from Louisiana. All the guys that I've named are actually from Louisiana, and our roots are here, and this is what we wanted to do, was bring that purple and gold, bring back those white jerseys, and make the fans proud to call themselves LSU Tiger fans.
Well, that first year, after the 6 losing seasons, you're playing a lot as a freshman. You went to Alabama, always a tough place, 10-3.
You had to bring that up.
10-3.
Really?
It was a close game,
Yes.
though. It was very against an Alabama team that was pretty good.
Absolutely. Let me share this with you. So what happened was Jamie Howard was injured a couple games prior to that against Florida. And then he came back and he played in that game. And for whatever reason, Jerry DiNardo thought of me as a second-team quarterback. And Jamie actually got hurt in that game. And so I had to come into that game at the very tail end, maybe one series in the fourth quarter. The game was over, and they asked me to do a couple things, and I did not play well at all. I was a 17-year-old freshman, 190 pounds soaking wet, and I thought I knew what I was doing. But if you don't go into a full week of practice into a game like that, you'll never know. I mean, we're playing against Dwayne Rudd, one of the best linebackers in the country, and Alabama was set. Man, these guys had some studs on their front 7 in the defensive front, and it was just really difficult for myself. But I didn't play well, to say the least. But at the end of the day, after that, having 4 weeks of practice, ended up doing okay.
2 years later, you go into Bryant-Denny.
Yeah.
And that score was LSU 27
20-0, yeah.
to nothing for Alabama.
Yeah.
That was a good night.
Oh, great night. Look, let me tell you, it was one of those nights where you dream of a night like that, right? Because it's SEC football at its best. At Bryant-Denny Stadium, playing against Alabama, the Bear Bryant, Alabama. And, me, myself, coming from little old New Orleans, right? Kid who no one thought would play quarterback at LSU, went in there, and then we scored 27. Our defense held them to 0, and it was just a high point in one of my career games. I enjoyed every moment of that. It really made me feel as though I have arrived in the college football ranks, if you will, and it was a blessing. God really, really humbled myself in that situation and that win, to say the fact that all things are possible no matter what. So it was a great deal. It was a team effort. Defense played great. Kevin ran the ball great. Rondell Mealy ran the ball great. Josh Booty caught the ball well, as well as Larry Foster. And that particular season in 1997 was a really special season for me, and I enjoyed every game in that season.
Yeah, that was a great year for LSU, and of course it also included that big win over Florida, 28-21.
Yes,
the goalpost came down. You'll never forget that night.
No, that's a night where literally the magic was brought back to Tiger Stadium, right? And it's one of those situations where, when you think about it, you can never put that game in words. Like, I don't know, if I was a great writer, I maybe be able to put it in words. If I was a great painter, I could probably paint it, but I'm not any of those. So only thing I can tell you is that it was electrifying. The night was a glorious night for Tiger fans. It was one of those nights that was surreal. It was surreal in the fact that I was not anywhere in the stadium. It was like an out-of-body experience, but everything that I've done or did on that night was right there in the middle of it all, and it was a great deal, man. And I can't thank my teammates enough. I can't thank the coaches enough, and I definitely can't thank the fans enough for being there and sharing that moment with us.
So those first 3 years, you go to bowl games, you're doing very well, and then '98 was thought to be a great year, and it didn't work out. But people forget in that stretch where you lost 6 out of 7 games, 5 of those losses were by 6 points or less, and the other was by 12 points at number 6 Florida. So you were in every game. And sometimes momentum is such that you just can't buy a win, and then other times, like this year, as people believe, and perhaps for good reason, it's a team of destiny. Do you think this LSU team is ready to break that streak against Alabama?
So we had some unfortunate things happen in that 1998 season, which was we lost Coach Carl Reese to a different team, which he went to Texas at that particular point in time. And then we ended up getting another defensive coordinator in Lou Tepper. And Lou Tepper brought his Big 10, Big 12, if you will, defensive style to Louisiana State University, which was not our style. We had athletes all over the place. Let's play man-to-man. Let's not play zone. Let's not make linebackers cover receivers, things of that nature. But anyway, we scored a ton of points, but we gave up a ton of points. With that being said, fast forward now, this Tiger team is destined, in my opinion, for greatness. They've sacrificed everything that they need to sacrifice over the summer, the spring, summer, and now we're here. And they've won every game up to this point, and now you're at the pinnacle of where you want to be. Number 1 versus number 2, LSU versus Alabama on the stage. It may not be a night game, and it's not in Tiger Stadium, but this is where you make your money, right? One thing that I've told people, and I will continue to tell people this all the time, even if we don't play night football games in Tiger Stadium, it's still a great night in Tiger Stadium. Why? Because you get to watch it and experience the team that's out there on the field, and you're going to root just as hard for those guys even if you're not in Tiger Stadium. And I think this team is destined for a great victory this weekend.
And perhaps the 2 best quarterbacks in the country will be on the field. We know Tua is coming back from an injury. Before we get to him, Burrow has had one of those magical seasons, and this may be the year. He could win the Heisman Trophy if LSU wins this game. How good is he?
He's great. He's not good. He's great. Last year, he showed you how good he was. This year, he's showing you how great he is. He turned the corner, and this is what I look for in young quarterbacks is you start one season and you show your ability to be a leader. You show your ability to take hits. You show your ability to say, hey, I'm the guy, let's go and do this, right? This year, he's beyond that. This year, he's like, I'm gonna show you guys that what we really can do as a team. And you can see that in the way that the guys play for him. You can see that in the way that the coaches coach him. You can see that in the way that the coaches allow him to run their offense. And it's a wonderful deal. This is what we've been hungry for the last, let's call it 5-6 years, maybe since 2011 when LSU played Alabama, the other game of the century. And so now we finally have it. So I think that this Joe Burrow, at the end of the day, no matter what happens from Saturday on, to me, he's my Heisman Trophy winner. And he's the guy that took the torch and brought LSU to where it really needed to be, and that's to the pinnacle of college football.
Tua's pretty good, too. He's going to play hurt. I don't think there's any doubt he's going to try.
I agree.
But he's a special talent.
He is. He's special. He's under the tutelage of a great coach in Nick Saban, who no one here will ever denounce that. He is the guy. He's what every coach strives to be in college football. At the end of the day, we saw Tua struggle against Clemson in the national championship last year. LSU is going to put the same pressure on him and is going to force him to make the same plays this weekend. I'm not saying that our defense is Clemson's defense in the national championship last year. But what I am saying is Coach Orgeron is a great coach. Coach Aranda is just as good. And they're going to take some pages out of that playbook from Clemson in the national championship game and say, how did they disrupt Tua? What did they do to rattle him? What did they do to get him off the spot? How did they make him confused? And I think that's what they're going to do, and I don't put that past them.
The focus is almost always on the quarterback. And then Herb Tyler in his day, he had 40 touchdown passes and 23 rushing touchdowns.
Wow,
People forget that.
I
know. And often the quarterback is the catalyst.
Yes, sir.
It's the most important position on the field, isn't it?
It is. It's the position that guys look up to before the game, and I mean during practice, and I mean at the movie theater on Friday nights, Saturday mornings when you're getting ready, preparing for the game, right before the game, dressing up in the locker room, during the game, after the game, and every time since then, right? So with that being said, I tell people this all the time: you can't get too high, you can't get too low. You have to be right here. People ask me all the time, how does it feel when you run out in between the goalposts? It's a great feeling. However, I don't get to experience the same feeling as a cornerback or as a running back or as a tight end or whatever it is, because they run out and they're placating to the crowd and they loving every minute. I'm running out, man, how do I keep these guys from jumping off sides? What play do I put them in to make sure that I'm making the right reads and not making any, throwing any interceptions or fumbling the ball or whatever it may be. So it is a position where you have to literally be CEO on the football field, and that's what it is.
We're visiting with Herb Tyler, starting quarterback for LSU for 4 seasons, 1995 to 1998. He was on a team that beat Alabama 27-0 in 1997 at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll talk with him more about then and now when we return with more Tiger Rag Television. I'm Jim Inkster. This is Tiger Rag Television, and we're continuing our conversation with Herb Tyler, 4-year starter at LSU, had great seasons in 95, 96, 97. Actually had his best statistical season in 1998. He threw for 18 touchdowns on a team that didn't do that well, but a lot of close losses. That was a different time. Jerry DiNardo brought back the magic, and then it was gone for a few years, and then along comes Nick Saban. He turns everything around. LSU, since his arrivals, had 20 straight 8-win seasons or more, and of course we had 2 national championships, 2003, 2007. It was thought LSU was going to win one in 2011 after they won the game of the century in Tuscaloosa. Now we're headed for another game of the century. That's an overused phrase, but I think this year it probably applies. This is a huge game with amazing implications.
The best thing about this game, and I tell this to all my friends and family, anybody who listen, is that this game is completely different than the game in 2011. You had 2 teams in 2011 who would always just run the ball. Let's say if they had the ball offensively for 60 times, they run the ball 55 times. Who cares, right? But this year, these guys are going to throw the ball all over the field. So it should be a fun game to watch. It shouldn't be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It should be very, very entertaining, offensively as well as defensively as well. So I think you have an experienced coach in Nick Saban who will continue to reinvent himself. And then you have an up-and-coming coach in Coach O who will invent himself, right? And I think that this is such a great deal for him. This will be his signature win out of all the coaching stints that he's had and everywhere he's been. This is going to be the one.
Well, Coach O, as we know, has had a roller coaster career. He's 58 years old. Here's a guy who went 3-21 in the SEC when he was at Ole Miss. But now he's on the brink of something really special. And it appears even if LSU were to lose, he's not going away. He's got a cupboard that's quite full. So he's going to be around in the skill positions, which I know you follow. You had great running backs. You mentioned them. But there's a lot of talent around Joe Burrow, isn't there?
There's, tons of talent. And the best thing about it is Joe Burrow is soaking it all up and making that talent even better around him, right? And that's what the great ones do. They make people better around them, which ultimately in college football makes your recruiting class better, right? So you go to the 2020 recruiting class, 2021, number 1 in the country. Here we are, here we go. It's about to start taking off. So the talent that's around Joe Burrow is only going to make our recruiting classes better. It's only going to make Joe Burrow better. It's only going to make the guys that are playing with Joe better.
I mentioned earlier the talent around you. You had Kevin Falk, who still is the leading rusher in the history of Louisiana State University. You know, when people talk about the great running backs, quite often they mention Billy Cannon and Charles Alexander. But Kevin Falk may have been as good or better than any of them, better than Leonard Fournette.
Hey, his stats say he is, right? Or was. And the thing about Kevin is, and I mentioned this earlier, Kevin could have went to Notre Dame, he could have went to Florida, he could have went to Florida State, he could have went to any Nebraska, he could have went to all of those top programs at the time in 1995. but he chose to come to LSU. He wanted to cement his footsteps here at LSU in Tiger Stadium in Louisiana, and that's the greatest thing about Kevin.
And you had another great running back, Cecil Collins, whose career was cut short. Some believe that he, as far as raw talent, may have been the best of them all.
Yeah, if not the best, close to it. His talent was so great that you could not put it on paper. You couldn't define it at all. And he only played 3 games. He had like 700 yards rushing with maybe 1 touchdown, which was the weirdest part about it. He never scored a touchdown, but he ran for 1,000,000 yards. He was great. Takeo Spike said it best. I don't want to ever see this guy again, ever.
Yeah. When you see a guy like Russell Wilson, who's about your size, dominating the NFL, and statistically, he's the greatest quarterback all time when you count the rushing yards.
Yep.
You must think, hey, that could have been me. That could have been her.
Well, you know, Russell. When I look at Russell, I don't see myself. I see what I could have been, if that makes sense. He took his game to another level, where I wanted to take my game to. I didn't have the opportunity to do it, but I do see a little bit of me inside of him, and not because of stature, size, but because of leadership and because of who he is, and how once again he makes everyone around him better, and that's what I've always wanted to do. You give me an opportunity to play, guess what's going to happen? We're going to be great.
Yeah.
We're not going to be good. We're going to be great, especially if you give me an extended amount of time to play. Because in college, you only play for a certain amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. But in the NFL, you get to play as long as you can possibly play, which means that you understand the game better. You know what's going on. The one thing about football, just like anything else, if you can understand the game of football, it's only the field is this wide, it's this long, this many people on it, on this side and that side. Once you understand that, everything else goes out the window, because the talent is the same equally on each side. But I know what I'm going to do before you know what I'm going to do, so I'm going to get it there before you get there. I know you're going to be there before my guy gets there, so what I'm going to do is not throw the ball there, so I'm going to throw it here. So that's the thing that I think Russell does very well. He understands the game, and he knows what he needs to do with the football, and his teammates respect him to the point of no return.
I can still see the upper body strength, which
Yes.
is a big part of your game. I also see some ink right here. What does that say?
That's TA Soldiers. It's a tattoo contributed to my dad, Mr. John H. Aguilar, who he was a wonderful man, taught me everything I know about life, taught me everything I know about being who I am, about work ethic, about respecting human beings, about loving God and moving forward with life. And I miss him dearly. He passed away going into my senior year in college. And the one thing he always wanted to do was walk across the field as when I was a senior for senior day to get that football from Coach Denard. That's the one thing he always wanted to do. He didn't make it, but he saw 3 years of it. And I'm proud to call him my dad, and I love him forever.
I can tell he still
Yes, sir.
makes an impression.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Herb Tyler, an LSU great, and
Thank you.
he'll be following Joe Burrow and the Tigers, as will the rest of us, come Saturday. We'll be back after this quick timeout.
Can you believe it? LSU is the touchdown underdog in this weekend's matchup against Alabama. So, of course, Jeff Palermo joins us in studio to sit down with the Tiger Rag staff to talk predictions.
Jeff Palermo back on Tiger Rag Television. It's time to take a look at the slate of games coming up this Saturday. Yes, there are other games other than the LSU-Alabama game. The 11 a.m. kickoff contest. It is Florida versus Vanderbilt. Gators are a 26-point favorite in this one. Ron, you like Florida?
Yeah, I'd like Florida to bounce back from this past weekend. You know, with Vanderbilt, you never know what you're going to get, except when they actually win a game, and then Derek Mason goes crazy after the game and tells them that they're never going to run him off as coach and that he's a warrior and all this stuff. I like Florida in this one. I think Kyle Trask didn't have a great game last week, but he is their best quarterback, but he just needs help in the running game. Will they cover the 26.5? I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think they cover as well. Florida's offense isn't the most high-powered in the country, but Vanderbilt's defense is just terrible. We saw that firsthand when LSU traveled to Nashville to play Vanderbilt this season. I think Kyle Trask is going to have a dominant performance against that defense, and I think that Florida comes away with a really big victory.
Kentucky versus Tennessee. This game will be played in Lexington. The Wildcats are a 1.5-point favorite in this contest.
I think Kentucky pulls this one out. I know I've been hard on Tennessee, and they've actually outperformed my expectations over this past week, but I think that Kentucky is a much better team once again. I think they're much better than a 1.5-point favorite, and I think they win this game pretty handily.
I think Kentucky's got Tennessee right where they want them. A few years ago, Kentucky upset Tennessee by sticking a wide receiver as their quarterback. And guess who their quarterback this year? A wide receiver. I'm sure Tennessee is shaking in their boots. Tennessee seems to be playing a little bit better. At one time in this series, Tennessee won so many times in a row, it was ridiculous. Kentucky's got some confidence. I'm gonna go with Tennessee in this one. I don't know why. I just feel like the Vols are gonna win this one.
All right, the other big game in the nation this Saturday is up in Minneapolis. Penn State versus Minnesota. The Nittany Lions are a 7-point favorite in Minneapolis.
I'm going to take Penn State. I think they're going to cover now. I'm going to take Penn State for this reason. One, of course, already they have the natural distraction of James Franklin being mentioned for the Florida State job already. But Penn State's used to playing in these big games like this, and Minnesota just may not be. That's my only reason, because P.J. Fleck's done a really great job at Minnesota.
My brain says Penn State, but my heart says Minnesota. I think P.J. Fleck's done a wonderful job at Minnesota this year. They're undefeated. They're on a hot streak. This could be a franchise-defining win if they pull this off. I think they go in there and they come out with an upset win.
All right, now to the big game in Tuscaloosa. 2:30 in the afternoon. The Tigers are a 6.5-point underdog. Does LSU pull off the upset here?
I think they do. I've had a running joke with my family and friends that I would never pick LSU until they beat Alabama, but I'm breaking that rule this year. I think this team feels almost fate-filled. I think that they have all the pieces to do it, the ones that they haven't had to beat Alabama in the past few years. Alabama's schedule doesn't really speak for itself, while LSU's does, and I think that this is finally the year that LSU comes out of Tuscaloosa with a much-needed victory.
LSU finally has a quarterback. It finally has an offense that is in the modern era of football. It has a bunch of veteran leadership. It has been really good since the beginning of the year. This is a team back in the summer which had no arrest. And if you follow LSU football, it's a big deal. Almost for any school, it's a big deal. It shows you the maturity of this team. They've been that way all year. They focused on the game straight ahead of them, not behind them or not 2 weeks down the road. And yeah, I do think this is the year LSU breaks the streak. I like LSU. And I mean, people have asked me what the score is going to be. I don't really care. I mean, the score is going to be as long as they walk there a winner. It's going to be a one-possession score also the game.
There we go. Tyler and Ron both predicting LSU to win. I like LSU to win too. I think it's just time. That does it for our picks this Saturday. For this Saturday's games, we'll take another break. More of Tiger Rag Television after this.
Thank you for joining us here at Tiger Rag Television. We will be here, same time, same place, next Wednesday to talk about the game of the century, LSU versus Alabama. Will Joe Burrow do it? All of us here sure hope so, but we will, of course, be here with all of your LSU sports news regardless, because we are the Bible of LSU sports. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you again real soon.